How did we all get here? I mean, the whole debate is so fundamentally backwards and upside down. It's based on a fallacy. And the fallacy is this, that somehow in a trade, someone must lose. That somehow when you trade with someone, there's a loser and someone's taking advantage of you and China's ripping you off or Japan's ripping you off. It's absolutely a fallacy. Every trade that occurs in the marketplace is mutually beneficial. If you have a free society and I trade with you, if you want to sell me your coat and I give you $200 for it, we both agree to it and we're both happy with the trade. No American consumer trades with China. They trade with Walmart, or they may buy something from China, but they individually buy something they want and they make a decision. The trade is always a win-win. Now, you could artificially do this accounting between countries and say, oh, trade deficit, look at this trade deficit. But I have a trade deficit with my grocery store. The people who employ me, if I work for Corvette and they employ me, they have a trade deficit with my labor. They buy my labor and I never buy their cars. So you can have this artificial accounting and it makes it look like a bad thing, but you have to ask yourself, is trade good or bad? And if you look at the trade deficit, in times of a recession, the trade deficit goes down. So if the tariffs push us into a recession, we could reduce the trade deficit because we're all buying less stuff. We have to get back to the fundamentals of, is trade good or is trade bad?
Let me just say right off the bat, do you know how misguided Trump has to be for me and Rand Paul to agree? Because the reality is that Rand Paul is correct. Trump's entire argument here is based on a false premise, that we're somehow worse off if we're at a trade deficit with a trading partner, that it's a sign of America being ripped off. In reality, a trade deficit means that we are importing more than we export. That's not inherently a good thing or a bad thing. It simply means that Americans want more of those imports than foreign countries need of what we're selling them. Sometimes foreign countries produce something that we can't because, for example, of our climate. They produce it, we need it, we buy it, that's it. Whether they import American goods also is an entirely separate issue. They might not need our goods. They might be a poor country that can't afford our goods. Does that mean that we impose tariffs to punish them? And then that makes what we import more expensive for us? If none of this makes sense to you, join the club. And if both me and Rand Paul are in that club, it's a pretty big club. In fact, Larry Kudlow is apparently also part of it.
Mr. Secretary, if you get your tax cuts, and I guess you're well on the way, you get your deregulation. These are all huge pro-growth items. Okay. We will grow, we, the United States, will grow faster than Japan. We will grow faster than almost anybody. Therefore, almost by definition, by growing faster than the rest of the world, we're always going to have a trade deficit. So I don't know why you'd want to use the trade deficit in a calculation for a reciprocal charge. I understand your point about non-tariff barriers. I get that. That's why I would have chosen a handful of countries, I don't know, maybe 10 or a dozen countries, and really carefully pinpointed it. But to apply this to the whole world on the basis of trade deficits, is that really the best in your judgment? You've been around a long time. You've looked at these. You've done analysis. Is that really where we should be at?
And so is Ben Shapiro.
Yesterday, President Trump declared that it was, in fact, Liberation Day. His giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally. Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans, be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. One of the biggest tax increases on American consumers in the history of America. And it's going to cost American consumers. It will cost American producers who use inputs from other countries. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted immediately more than 1,000 points. The S&P 500 plummeted more than 3%. The NASDAQ plummeted almost 4.5%. There are real-world implications for this sort of stuff. Trade wars are, in fact, not good and not easy to win, particularly if you don't actually have a plan. It is predicated on a bad idea of how international trade works. A fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits. Trade deficits they're an accounting procedure. Trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. I can name you a period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression.
But let's do this. Let's humor the Trump administration for a moment with their backwards idea about trade imbalances. We've got a trade surplus with Australia, meaning they import from the US more than we import from them. And yet even still, the Trump administration opted to impose tariffs on them.
We already have a free trade agreement. We have a trade surplus. So getting the least bad, why did they get whacked in the first place?
We're addressing the $1.2 trillion deficit, the largest in human history that President Biden left us with. We should be running up the score in Australia.
Ambassador Greer, answer the question on Australia. We have a trade surplus with Australia. We have a free trade agreement. Why? They are a incredibly important national security partner. Why were they whacked with a tariff?
Senator, despite the agreement, they ban our beef, they ban our pork, they're getting ready to impose measures on our digital companies.
With your Greek letter formula, the fact that we have a trade surplus.
We have a global tariff on everyone. We're trying to address the $1.2 trillion deficit that Biden left us with.
I think that answer, sir, you're a much smarter person than that answer. The idea that we are going to whack friend and foe alike, and particularly friends, with this level is both, I think, insulting to the Australians, undermines our national security, and frankly makes us not a good partner.
And there go the goalposts. Now it's not enough to simply have a trade surplus, which I thought was what the Trump administration wanted. We also need them to buy certain items from us that we arbitrarily decide that they need to buy. We apparently also need to dictate how Australia runs their trade. I don't mean to be glib here, but it's almost like this administration isn't even looking for solutions, but rather just looking for more problems. Even in the instances where their insane demands are met, still they impose more demands. When you give Donald Trump an inch, he will take a mile every single time. And frankly, that sends just one message, that we are not a good faith negotiating partner, that we will always renege on our deals, and so honestly, why bother putting yourself out there if you're a foreign country? If I was a foreign leader, the likelihood that I would trust Donald Trump after seeing what he's doing to abide by a trade deal is somewhere in the ballpark of 0.0%. Which means that it's probably not worth their time to engage in trade deals with him at all. Which is why, by the way, despite Trump's breathless insistences that everyone is falling over themselves to strike a deal with him,
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
Back here on Earth 1, the reality is that countries are actually negotiating new trade deals without him, around the United States. For example, the EU has proposed 25% counter tariffs on the US, and China says that it's negotiating a new trade deal with Japan and South Korea, countries that were our allies. In other words, Trump claims that he wants to project American supremacy at a time when we're threatened by an ascendant China, and yet far from his policies bolstering the US, they are literally driving our former allies into the arms of China. And that, folks, is the art of the deal. And so the point here is clear. What Trump is doing is a disaster. And this isn't just me projecting my political views onto the situation, it is borne out in national polling. According to Navigator Research, Trump's negative coverage has skyrocketed to the highest point since he took office. And the principal driver of that negative coverage is his disastrous tariff policy. So he can fillet himself until the sun goes down and pretend that his policies are, quote, legendary.
And I really think we're helped a lot by the tariff situation that's going on, which is a good situation, not a bad. It's great. It's going to be legendary. You watch. Legendary in a positive way, I have to say. It's going to be legendary.
But even he recognizes the truth, even if he won't show it. His desperate marketing and selling is a tell that he is losing massive swaths of his own base. That's why he's out there like a circus performer right now, trying to keep the masses in check. He's not doing it from a place of strength, he is doing it from a place of weakness. The fact that Rand Paul, Ben Shapiro, Larry Kudlow, Dave Portnoy, and the entire left are aligned on this issue is a testament to exactly that. Trump always fantasized that he would bring the country together. He has, but not at all in the way that he thinks. Before you go, first, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we're now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they're willing to cater to this White House. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a great way for me to be able to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's completely free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support my work. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.